need it?
Normally with HDMI,
oh, you don't need
good.
it.
Okay. However, you need to put your setup. If you escape, you go in your preferences. It's on the top here. Preferences, yeah. No, all of them. Yeah, sound. And you're on HDMI. Okay. Great, all good.
If for some reason it doesn't come through, just use this because occasionally it goes to sleep. Okay, so this final panel is titled Emerging Talent, which is great. It promises a lot, and we've got 4 research degree candidates speaking. They are the emerging talent research leaders. Okay, so our first speaker is Kim Monroe, who's based here at RMIT, a PhD candidate, who's looking at participatory practices emerging in documentary forms with photography, video, text, collage, and essayism. So you have about 10 minutes to speak.
Thank you.
I'll give you a little wave of 10 minutes and open the questions.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a little bit about what I've been doing this year in my first year. And I think maybe it's slightly a leap to call my work in the mobile phone field, but it's sort of using the mobile, and I've sort of used various ways. This is my research topic at the moment, so I've just highlighted the words that are kind of the key words that I've been researching, sort of participation, spaces, and aloneness. So I want a little bit about this manifesto that I made, which is, I realized when Seth was talking, you know, my work is a little bit similar to his, and he's actually my supervisor, so that was good to know. So I started this about 14 weeks ago, and I just decided that, not my PhD, I started this, this idea of the manifesto where I just make a work every week, mainly around aloneness. And it was a way of just experimenting with forms, and I guess sort of, you know, researching through the practice, and also having a bit of a deadline for actually making things. So every Monday I would upload something to my website, and often it would be sort of Monday afternoon that I would do something, but it was a way of forcing me to make something that I wouldn't have made. I just thought I'd show this because this is maybe a little bit of a, I don't know, a sense of the kind of tools that I generally use. And it's interesting just thinking about ideas around and also aura, because a lot of them are actually, you know, using kind of film practices and disposable cameras and kind of cheap lo-fi technology, and then the iPhone as well. So just some of the projects that I've done. This was the first one. So I started just documenting my own sort of space around me. This was a video I made about a possum that had sort of moved into my cupboard in the bathroom, made a hole and living there. So it's just sort of a video about aloneness and the possum. And then the next week I started experimenting with sort of this idea of making a blog, and because this mask had appeared outside my apartment, and it was sort of, I don't know, there are a lot of things, how, you know, some of the flats had been attempted to be broken into, and there were sort of lots of strange things going on in the apartment building. People were moving out and no one was moving in, and so I started this sort of blog, and I put these around, and some people submitted some sort of ideas about what the mask was. And then this is just a video I made sort of about just walking around the streets at night. So again, it's just like this kind of idea of using vernacular practices with the mobile phone. This is, I did move out of that apartment. So I, you know, just documenting the space and the last time I visited there, and just sort of recounting a list of everything that had happened in that apartment during the time that I'd lived there, both in sort of my own life and in sort of, you know, world politics. I also used, just the, so again, just using some of the film practices as well as with iPhone photographs. Also, this was another project where I took just different lines from RSVP dating blogs, well, they're not blogs, they're sites, their profiles, and just sort of anytime somebody mentioned alone, I sort of pulled that out. This is one I made with some donuts that I found in the park with ants crawling, and I used just some text. Maybe I'll play it actually. It's really short. Won't work. Okay. It was just me. I made some music and I was sort of singing a song to a scientific kind of report on lonely ants that die young and hungry. Oops. No. Sorry. It's frozen now. No, the mouse is moving here. Any solutions? Or?
Is this a video in a PDF? So it's a PowerPoint.
It's just a PowerPoint, yeah.
Sometimes you have to relink if you move the PowerPoint to a different computer.
Oh, no, it's the same computer.
Is your computer frozen, or is it
Just the projector.
just the projector?
It's Mina, you know, his father was it's part of the story of Mina. And that's the story.
No.
And I think there is something about the cable. No? I just noticed that I'm using the cable.
What's the shortcut for?
Ah, you unplugged everything? Oh no, so that's another one here.
That was.
Where is the HDMI?
Isn't it the one?
Ah, yes, yes, okay. Let's try on another computer to see if it works. So, yeah, so that works here. So it should work on yours. And I think it's frozen because of the video. And they did in the. It's very bad to have a video in PowerPoint.
Does anybody know the shortcut for force quit?
Yes, it's a control option and escape.
Okay.
And you need to scroll down.
You need some putting on hold music.
Singing.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that will work.
And we should connect that again here. Okay.
Okay, the screen's on.
Did you force to quit? PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not even there.
Isn't it?
No.
It's quick, but it's still.
It's not over. It's not over until the last minute.
There it is.
I just mentioned. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, definitely. Did you embed it in PowerPoint?
Yeah. Oh
can
no, I
be-
just did a hyperlink.
Can be. Oh, okay. Interesting. Shouldn't be a problem. Anyway.
All right. Let me just show that just to get back. All right, I'm not going to show that. Hey? It's not working.
I think it was just loading.
Hang on, sorry.
You need to include HD as well. If you're on Wi-Fi. And HD.
HD.
On the right. Yeah, and if you click play again.
I'm doing studying new media.
Yeah. Okay, so reload the page. Okay, reload. We should close a few windows to see.
No, I need them all.
Yeah, close all those.
I
I think you've got too many tabs.
Anyway, I'll just go back to the. Lonely Ants can wait. Anyway, it's on my website if you need to see it. So then I just wanted to start actually trying to include some participation in my sort of weekly event. So I left these little invitation cards that were handwritten around different places in the State Library and in the supermarket, and just inviting different people to participate if they found one. So I had a few people respond and post things on my website. And then I thought I would extend that a bit more and actually start giving people tasks that they might be able to participate. So I gave a task to a friend who was traveling around Japan. So I gave her a list of different photographs to take, responding to aloneness. So these were a few. So it was one each day. So there are a list of options, and then she could choose sort of which one she wanted to do on which day. And then I made, this was for my partner who's going to America, and I made her this little kit so she could sort of document, and I gave her a list, and I gave her way too many tasks to do, but and the camera and a map to sort of code and fill out. And these were some of the responses. So I think this is interesting because something happened to the film, and it ended up, every photo ended up looking like this, because I think it got wet or something. And she attempted to fill out sort of the, the journal I gave and the list here. But I put a photograph that she'd taken with her phone sort of alongside with some of the film. So just, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure where the research is going, but I think it's sort of like, I don't know, I like including some of this sort of film work with the mobile phone as well. That was about it, really. So, sorry about the technology.
What we might do is we'll just maybe run through back to back, and then if we've got time for questions at the end, we'll come back to you because we're running. Is that all right?
Excellent. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, next we've got Amy.
Presenting.
Yeah, I need Prezi.
Yeah, okay.
Can I work?
Oh,
It's ill internet.
Okay. So you're
So Amy's based at the Chaloo in AUT, and she's investigating the development of Samoan transmedia design practice. Interesting. So
okay.
you need to download it. Or
No, it's running off Prezi. So I'm really hopeful that it's not going to crash, because Prezi can sometimes be a bit media heavy. So we shall see. I'll just fit right in. So if anyone doesn't know Prezi, it's basically glorified PowerPoint.
it runs through
Yeah, yeah. So it's a cloud-based service, and the idea is that its main strength is that rather than going from discrete frame to frame, it can behave like what I'm about to show you. But one of the issues is if you are using the free service, everything is public by default. So if you have sensitive information, then you need to go a level up in payment or such. So I'm not too precious about this, so it's all public. Supposedly, yeah. So we shall see.
And you uploaded your presentation just before midnight.
2 a.m. this morning. Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. My name's Amy Chaloo. As Chris mentioned, I'm a master's candidate with CoLab at AUT in Auckland. And when I embarked on the Masters of Creative Technologies, I wanted to learn how to tell a transmedia story that would allow us Samoans to explore our world and ways of understanding. I wanted to do this with stories designed for participation and co-creation, where geographical distance is no barrier to inclusion, and the blend of indigenous and new technologies could help young communities negotiate their place between cultures. Now, in a humbling journey over the last 9 months, I recognized other concerns drove my pursuit, but to do them justice, I had to exercise patience and leave them for a future journey. So the scope of my current research now situates itself at the intersection of Samoa's storytelling legacy, new digital technologies, and practice. Specifically, it draws from the existing academic literature on the functions, form, and transformation of a particular style of Indigenous Samoan storytelling called whangongo. Briefly, whangongo is one of, sorry, I will come back to that, so don't stress. Whangongo is one of Samoa's oral traditions that serve the same function of many stories today, which is a way for people to make sense of the world around them. So in his documentation of around 200 whangongo, Richard Moyle notes these also served as fables, moral stories with formulaic plots to articulate the social conventions for acceptable behavior and conduct. So these stories were often told at night by village elders to a young audience, with no reference tools but their memory, imagination to blend proverb, poetry, song, and mythical narratives with fictional or real events. So the form and function of whangongo began transforming with the return of foreign-educated Samoans, initially through the written word and radio. But the subsequent decades have proven that the evolution of whangongo is becoming a site for reflection on established conventions, customs, governance, and notions of identity. So at the same time, storytellers were implicitly charged to recapture that indigenous power of Samoan oratory with the immersion and the intimacy of the original whangongo practice. So our stories were no longer living and dying under the cover of night for the ears of a few, but were being circulated or broadcast across an entire country or sometimes beyond. Now that we've got all this new technology, it's proposing not only new ways of knowing and understanding, but debate over both the form and function of the traditional whangongo. So the subject matter, the style, the circulation remain the primary challenges, but the questions have become more sophisticated. So it's not only simply, what will I write? How will I write it? How will I get people to read it? But with the global dispersion of our communities, and this being one of the primary ways we keep in contact, the portable access to these global information highways and the use of social media in particular has replaced the communal meeting grounds of our marae and the shelter of our whare. So the opportunities brought by access to these new means and modes of communicating transform our question to, what will I tell and how will I tell it? So now in a culture that bombards us with all this media, and this is no news to anyone in the room, how and where will people encounter my story? And what experience do I want them to have? So it's a really fortunate place to actually be in the agenda, because you've had all these talks which have come before me, which actually lay out a lot of the principles about what are transmedia, and thankfully my practice that I'm investigating in the future ties in very well with what Thor's talked about. We have a lot of principles about narrative inquiry as well that I'm hoping to explore moving forward. So in the context of New Zealand, how are we Samoans responding to this challenge? What does whangongo look like today? So my research investigates the contemporary manifestation of whangongo, firstly through case studies of established digital storytelling projects, which are aimed at Samoan audiences. And that's going to be the focus of what I talk about in my remaining time today. So, mutually funded by New Zealand On Air through their Digital Media Fund Kickstart campaign, we have first The Factory, which was a musical web series about a Samoan family in South Auckland, based off the acclaimed theatre production of the same name. Secondly, I considered the Pacific Island web portal of Coconut TV, project their design and their purpose, but what they share is an overt mission to be transmedia projects, weaving a narrative experience through the composition of different media on different platforms, and one that invites the participation and contribution of the audience for the final formation of a story. So the integration of mobile considerations into their design has steered them really within the safe harbors just of mobile accessibility and optimization. So with the exception of highly dynamic features they provided, such as interactive timelines and a dialect learning game, so far all other features of both projects appear accessible and well-rendered in mobile devices. However, it's not apparent that any unique experiences were designed for the mobile user in mind, beyond the ability to simply view and share this content with ease and immediacy. But pending consultation with their producers to inform these findings, I've currently placed both projects at the low to mid ends of this proposed scale of audience engagement. Now, this is something that's highly in progress, and it's been inspired by transmedia principles of participatory culture and Robert Pratton's anecdote that participation should be at the heart of transmedia storytelling. But it's still finding its place in theoretical framework. So please don't hesitate to refer me on to any established models which you deem are relevant. Through their core web presence and auxiliary social media platforms, my initial assessment of both projects' strategy to engage their audience has found these were experiences prioritizing consumption and participation to the nature of liking, sharing, and reacting, but only for the purpose of further redistribution. Coconut ranked higher through efforts to engage their audience as contributing content creators, not narratively nor interactively mobile specific. So in the coming months, I hope to speak to the Coconut producers to gauge the success of this invitation they issued. But we already understand that continuous engagement must anticipate and respond to an audience's willingness to engage. By measure of likes, shares, comments, and fan or audience contributions, it appears that the New Zealand Samoans community's digital culture of co-creation is still within its infancy. It still emulates the traditional whangongo model of the story flowing in one direction, though now, instead of joining in song at a story's end to reflect on the lessons, we are invited to join in meta-discussion, which is primarily still a space of individual expression, and it's achieving variable success. So without explicit spaces and actions designed for this audience to participate, without consideration of the unique experiences afforded by the autonomy and the private intimacy of mobile access that can allow us to use these familiar tools, but in new ways, it's reasonable to infer that audience engagement on these projects may plateau. From this, I've determined to further study the nature of the relationship between the New Zealand Samoan community, mobile and digital storytelling, in a method of Pacific research called Talanoa. So in the next phase of my research project, through qualitative Talanoa interviews with the producers of the above projects, established artists, and scholars, I'll analyze the cultural considerations of whangongo with their production process, including scales of scales of audience engagement like what was shown above. Secondly, I'll be forming a focus group to understand what stories New Zealand Samoans actually want to hear. What do they want to share? And what do they want to build together? While recognizing the opportunity for my method to evolve through talanoa consultation with the community, at this time, the investigation of contemporary digital whangongo will follow a comparative line of investigation. So I'll be asking virtually at this time the same style of questions for both audiences, which is why I was quizzing, what was his name from South Africa? Lorenzo, yeah. He had a very similar project, so I was really curious to see how he designed his questions. So at this time, my intention is to be quite explicit in the framing of those questions so that I can have comparative answers and actually see if we have a mismatch between the expectations of our storytellers and our audience. And it'll help us see if we fail to capture any obvious gaps with our move to the adoption of this mobile media. And that should hopefully, with my next step, inform the future picture for the next stage in experimentation, the development of new principles or design practice for this community. So in closing, are there any general or culturally specific considerations for mobile media and usage that I might have overlooked in either impact on storytelling or the method that I've proposed? If you have any comments, I would love to hear them. So, thank you.
Any immediate comments, just very quickly about all we
Okay, so we need to connect with Tam
Tam?
in Wellington.
Oh, right, okay.
I think so. Is it? Is it?
Yes,
Yeah, Tam. Okay. Okay.
On your mind.
Yeah. Let me just make sure he's there. Patrick is there. Finn, boy. 70. To give you some backstage story, Tam was online Sunday afternoon, and and he emailed all of us, "Where are you? What's going on? Why can't you talk to me right now?" And we discovered that on Monday morning. So he had it wrong in terms of timing, and I think he should be here. I will just try to check with my laptop the other one. It's not online right now. We should move with Martin. Martin, yeah. Happy to go?
Okay.
Yes, because apparently he's not here. Martin.
We stick into this machine.
Yeah, so don't close that window, please.
Okay, yeah.
And
close all
yours.
Yep, thank you.
It's becoming a routine. Everyone knows how to dance.
Okay, so this is Martin Kozolkov, who's based here at RMIT. He teaches at the University of PhD, and he's looking at the future of remote music collaboration.
Thank you, Craig. Hello. Maybe I should take this mic into this direction. I love the acoustics in this space. So my research is about the contemporary landscape of remote music collaboration, and such collaboration enables a variety of people to get together and crowdsource musical input with the use of remote music collaboration software, which I refer to as RMCS. And in my research, I consider the intersection of such software with social networking options. And I also examine the impact of these technologies on music collaboration. Various related areas of investigation include collectivity, communication, workflow, productivity, as well as software design. My research is project-based, so in my fieldwork, I conducted collaboration on a dozen musical compositions with approximately 40 participants located in various geographical locations on 3 continents, so North America, Australia, and Europe. And during my project work, I engaged in crowdsourcing with 2 key musical objectives in mind. So one was the intention of finding a suitable collaborator who could provide a very specific contribution. So we're talking about a musical contribution, for example, playing a specific instrument in a musical composition. The second objective was a requirement for a much less specific musical input. So this allowed opening up projects to more unpredictable creative outcomes while maintaining the ability to decide on the final form and direction of a given project. So both of these objectives can be achieved separately or combined within one project. So there could be an area of very specific musical directions that have to be achieved, as well as some creative freedom. So in examining collaborative work in the cloud, I have drawn on my own experiences of producing various musical styles, and I used 3 cloud-based platforms, which are called Own Studio, Audio Tool, and the third one is called Blend. And Blend is a software management system which allows to use otherwise non-collaborative music production software in a collaborative way. So what really is interesting about these platforms is that they are associated with very large online communities of users. So that's one of the key reasons why I have decided to use this specific. So for example, Audio Tool, and you can see the screenshot from Audio Tool just here, has 650,000 users, while Home Studio has over 150,000 users. So those are large communities of musicians which enable collaborative work and crowdsourcing. In my research, I examine online communication and remote collaboration within the field of record production. My research aims to map the architecture of musical collaboration in the online world, explained through the classification of various phases of development of collaborative projects, as well as discussion on the processes of crowdsourcing, remixing, and jamming in the cloud. So one major contribution of my research concerns analysis of various modes of collaborative work facilitated by online platforms. Further contribution is a classification of how social networking combined with cloud-based music production technologies can lead to new and alternative approaches to music production in global contexts. Now, given the theme of this symposium, you might wonder about the mobility of remote music collaboration software, and it varies. And I think the software is currently undergoing a huge transition, and the mobility will be increasing. So, for example, this platform, Audio Tool, has been initially coded in Flash, which, for example, as you might know, is restricted by corporations such as Apple. So it's very difficult to use Flash on an Apple device. However, it's currently being redesigned into an HTML5 code, which will allow the use of Audio Tool on mobile devices such as your iPhone, because Audio Tool runs within any web browser, pretty much, that supports currently Flash, but in the future HTML5. So you can work on the go, basically. There are also some interesting developments in the iOS platform. There are some collaborative systems being established. They are not as powerful as the software I'm looking at primarily, but they are definitely emerging, and there's something exciting building up in regards to the mobile collaborating sphere. So by utilizing crowdsourcing with the use of this software, I have been able to create music in a dramatically new way in comparison to the old model of exchanging files without the use of RMCS. So I encountered and explored new ways of collaboration, transcending geographical boundaries and time zones. In addition, RMCS offers a dramatically new way of remixing. So it opens the studio of the creator of the original composition to the remixer, who can see all the tools and compositional techniques implemented right in front of him or her. So that's a very different approach from a traditional remix situation, which I have been also involved in the past. So what the work in RMCS tells us about the art of remixing and collaboration is that previously clear boundaries have to be redefined now. Firstly, the creator publishing the track online can grant the right for any member of a given community of users to remix his or her compositions. Secondly, the access to the tools is unprecedented because it is completely full access. So you basically see exact copy of the studio of the original creator. Thirdly, the process, in theory, can have no end, as remixes can be further remixed by other users. So furthermore, the sampling enabled by platforms such as Audio Tool extends this concept even further, as elements of, for example, various mine compositions have been used in a variety of other creations by the users of this platform. So in 2015, online jamming and remixing offers a way of work that is characterized by dynamism. This type of jamming transcends time zones and is very spontaneous. The spontaneity is evident not only in the form of musical expression, but also in how unexpected musical partners can join new projects and start participating in them. So learning from communities of users can be another very important aspect of working with this software. It's a way of overcoming various types of challenges encountered during collaborative project work. And mutually beneficial exchanges of ideas and thoughts are at the core of networked collaboration. As a result, this type of work is characterized by reciprocity influencing collaboration, cooperation, as well as creative collective creation. Don't know if we have time, but how much? 2 minutes, okay. I just want to quickly maybe talk about some of the creative things I encountered. So in those parts of my project work where I aimed to achieve specific musical goals, 2 modes of achieving the final outcome have emerged. The first one involves pursuing the initial goal until the exact desired effect is achieved. The second mode of work involves letting several members of online community play to the best of their ability and later choosing takes from these recordings. Often these takes have been far removed from my initial concept of what might be a suitable direction for a song. In the second mode, we are following the flow of the community and we are letting the current of the collaboration carry us, while still maintaining the power of veto. So going with the flow and permitting a more flexible approach can lead to interesting and yet unplanned creative outcomes. My research is highlighting various new methods of internet-made music production, but also the capacity to increase our understanding of how musicians choose to interact in the 21st century. Of course, a time dominated by networked technology. So one of the key aims I was pursuing was to determine the impact of cloud-powered tools on creative processes and collaboration. In addition, I also aimed to establish whether online music production tools can challenge traditional digital audio workstations software in the ability to produce musical content, and whether this kind of software can become mainstream on the global commercial music industry scale. So what is the future of online music or remote music collaboration? Based on the industry feedback, as well as looking at some of the mainstream companies, it becomes more and more evident that the future is for mainstream music production software to absorb these very technologies pursued currently by very small manufacturers. So they are startups. For example, AudioTool is run by a German group of passionate coders who don't make any money out of it. Home Studio is designed in France and also is at a very early stage of development. And yet big companies like, say, Avid, which makes software called Pro Tools, has in 2015, for the first time, officially embraced remote collaboration. So it looks like it's just a question of time before mainstream large companies will embrace this technology, and it will be interesting to see how it will impact on the smaller players, which are currently the cutting edge developers. So thank you very much for your time.
Good one. So we've got 30 minutes, but can't join the broadcast. So what I'm offering is to go through a few questions to recognize and context.
Questions. So anything for Martin, Amy, or Kim?
I was curious, Martin, whether that software, was that for real-time remote collaboration? So, and what does concurrent time, how does that affect creativity?
It varies. Some software like Home Studio, which website you can see in here. I was even thinking maybe I'll have time to show you a little video, but perhaps you can do it on your own if you go to that URL. So with Home Studio, it's almost real time. However, this software is not really an approximation of jamming in real time. So no, it's not so much about playing music in real time, but it's more like being in a recording studio in the real time. So for example, when you work in this software, you can see there is a built-in chat room, and you can exchange ideas in real time. And also your collaborator or yourself, whenever you record something new, it will emerge in front of your collaborator with a very small delay. So there is a minimal delay, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, but it's not really about playing live. It's more about recording ideas in the timeline as you would in software like Pro Tools or Ableton Live, and then constructing a musical composition out of it. However, going back to how it affects creativity, it's interesting because I've been asking my collaborators what they think about this exact question, and some people really prefer the time delay because it allows them to gather their ideas and reflect on something, whereas if you are right here with your collaborator in the same room, you feel right on the spot. So you feel maybe you don't have enough time to respond in a constructive way. And interestingly enough, some very established musicians like Brian Eno and David Byrne, for example, they've done some online collaboration. And that's exactly what David Byrne said, that he felt like when he was just working remotely with Brian Eno, he had the space to think. Whereas if he would have been with him in the same room, there would be so much more pressure to appear brilliant, you know, right? And it's a common feedback when you look at some famous collaborations, like let's say David Bowie and Queen recording under pressure. They were all very stressed because no one wanted to appear nothing else but brilliant. So I think that gives people actually a little bit more privacy, which is interesting in terms of creativity. Well, if not, I'll just sit down. I'll close this.
Thank you.
Let me just check what's going on here. One more question, no? For Kim or Amy? No? No question for Kim or Amy? All right. Okay, so okay, so Tam is not here, unfortunately. And let me just check my chat. No, okay. So sorry. Oh, yes, okay. Yes. No, so no more question. All right, so I decide to close that session then, sadly, without Tam being able to present. Okay.